The fluorescent lights of Grand Mercy, hospital's emergency department, hummed with tension as Dr. Jasmine Carter moved swiftly between patients, her white coat fluttering behind her. The digital clock above the nurses' station blinked 2:47 a.m. as another ambulance siren wailed in the distance. Jasmine's skilled hands adjusted an IV drip while her sharp eyes tracked the new arrivals. 2 overdose cases being wheeled in by frantic paramedics. Welcome to Life in Legends. Please do let me know about your stories and tell me from where you are watching this video. Room 3 and 5, she called to the triage nurse, her voice rough from 12 relentless hours on shift. The familiar hospital smells of antiseptic, sweat and stale coffee clung to everything in the overcrowded emergency room. Just as she finished documenting her last patient's chart, the automatic doors burst open with a whoosh that made every head turn. Trauma alert. Male mid-30s found unconscious near Club Nova. A paramedic shouted as they rushed in a gurney carrying a bloodied figure. Possible assault victim, Glasgow coma scale 7 and dropping. Jasmine was at the patient's side before the words fully registered, her trained eyes absorbing the critical details. The blown pupil, the irregular breathing pattern, the deep purple bruising spreading across his temple. Her fingers found his wrist automatically. Weak pulse, blood pressure 80/50, she reported, already reaching for the portable ultrasound. We need neurology stat and… Hold it. The icy voice of Dr. Langston, the attending physician, cut through the chaos. He barely glanced at the moaning patient before flipping through the empty chart. No identification? No insurance paperwork? The paramedic shook his head, found without wallet or phone. Just this. He held up a plastic bag containing a blood-stained parking garage ticket. Langston's mouth tightened. Stabilize and prepare for transfer to County General. We're at capacity with insured patients. Jasmine's hand froze on the ultrasound probe. Sir, he's showing signs of increased intracranial pressure. If we don't… That's an order, Dr. Carter. Langston's eyes were flinty behind his glasses. Not up for debate. He strode away, already moving to the next case. For a long moment, Jasmine studied the patient's face, the sweat beading on his dark skin, the blue tinge around his lips. Then she made her decision. With a nearly imperceptible nod to Nurse Maya Johnson, her most trusted colleague, she pulled the privacy curtain closed with a decisive swish. Get me 20% mannitol and prep for an emergency burr hole, Jasmine whispered urgently as she snapped on fresh gloves. And page neurosurgery again, tell them it's a code silver. Maya's eyes widened. Code silver was reserved for VIP patients. Jasmine, if Langston finds out, then we'll say we misheard his orders. Jasmine was already inserting a central line with practiced movements. This man dies if we wait for County. I won't have that on my conscience. What followed was 90 minutes of controlled chaos. Covert CT scans, whispered consultations with a sympathetic radiologist, medications signed out under emergency protocols. When the neurosurgeon finally arrived, he took one look at the scans and grimaced. Subdural hematoma with midline shift. Operating room now? As they rushed the patient to surgery, Jasmine allowed herself one shaky breath. Then it was back to the endless cycle of charts and crises that filled an ER shift. Dawn was painting the sky pink when she finally collapsed into a chair in the staff lounge, her body aching with exhaustion but her mind strangely at peace. The peace shattered at 7:15 a.m. when the summons came. Director Langston wants to see you immediately. The charge nurse wouldn't meet her eyes. The walk to administration felt like marching to the gallows. Langston sat behind his immaculate desk, flanked by a stone-faced woman from Human Resources and a hospital lawyer. The termination letter sat between them like a loaded weapon. Effective immediately, Langston said coldly. You violated multiple hospital policies last night. We can't have physicians making life and death decisions based on… What? Your personal moral compass? Jasmine's hands clenched in her lap. I made a medical judgment to save a life. Isn't that why we took the Hippocratic Oath? The oath doesn't pay the hospital's malpractice premiums. The lawyer snapped. Your badge, please. The security escort out of the building was the longest walk of Jasmine's life. Colleagues averted their eyes. Even the janitor she'd bought Christmas presents for suddenly found his mop bucket fascinating. The summer sunlight outside felt like a mockery as she stood blinking on the sidewalk. her cardboard box of belongings suddenly heavy in her arms. Her small apartment seemed foreign when she finally stumbled through the door. The framed medical school diploma on the wall now seemed like a cruel joke. For hours she sat motionless on the couch, replaying every moment, every decision. Had there been another way? Should she have just followed protocol? The knock came just as dusk painted her living room in golden shadows. 3 crisp raps that sounded nothing like her landlord's habitual pounding. The woman at the door took Jasmine's breath away. Not just because of her elegant navy, trench coat, or the confidence in her posture, but because of the quiet intensity in her eyes. "Dr. Carter, I'm Elena Bennett. May I come in?" The name meant nothing to Jasmine, but something in the woman's bearing compelled her to step aside. Only when they were seated across from each other did realization strike. "Your husband, the patient from last night?" Elena's smile was small but radiant. "Adrian Bennett, founder of Bennett International Health Foundation, and thanks to you, still alive to celebrate our anniversary next week." She set a cream-colored envelope on the coffee table between them. "We'd like you to join our team." What followed was the most surreal 24 hours of Jasmine's life. A chauffeured car the next morning, a tour of Bennett Medical Center's state-of-the-art facilities where "no patient turned away" wasn't just a slogan but the core principle. Meeting teams of doctors, social workers, and community health specialists who spoke passionately about healthcare as a fundamental human right. Dr. Lillian Monroe, the chief medical officer, handed Jasmine a white coat with her name embroidered in the same blue thread as everyone else's. "We've been searching for someone with your courage and clinical skills," she said simply. "The world needs more healers who see patients as people first." The months that followed were the most challenging and rewarding of Jasmine's career. Training on the mobile medical units that served homeless encampments, learning the delicate art of earning trust in communities that had been failed by the system, discovering the profound difference between practicing medicine and practicing true healing. One rainy Thursday evening, as Jasmine bandaged a gunshot wound in the back of their mobile clinic van, Maya, who'd left Grand Mercy to join her, handed over a suture kit with a grin. "Remember when we used to worry about insurance paperwork?" Jasmine laughed, the sound surprising even her. As she worked, she caught sight of her reflection in the van's window. The same face, but with new light in her eyes. Somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being the doctor who got fired and become simply a healer. The final revelation came during a routine checkup with Adrian Bennett in his office at the foundation. As he rolled up his sleeve for a blood pressure check, he fixed her with that same penetrating gaze she'd seen in the ER months before. "You know why we recruited you, don't you?" Jasmine adjusted the cuff automatically. "Because I broke the rules." Adrian shook his head. "Because you remembered the most important rule. They never teach in medical school that sometimes doing what's right means being willing to stand alone." He patted her hand gently. "Welcome to the team, Dr. Carter. For real this time." As Jasmine walked back through the bustling clinic, past the recovery groups in the free pharmacy and the daycare for patients' children, she finally understood. That night in the ER hadn't been the end of her career. It had been the first day of her true calling. And for every life she touched from now on, the sacrifice would be worth it. The rain pattered against the mobile clinic's roof as Jasmine finished suturing the young man's wound, her hands moving with the precision of someone who had treated countless injuries in every imaginable condition. This patient, maybe 19, with gang tattoos and frightened eyes, hadn't even flinched when she'd injected the anesthetic. "All done, Marco," she said, snapping off her gloves. "But I need you to come back in 48 hours so Maya can check for infection." When he opened his mouth to protest, she added firmly, "No charge. Just show up." As Marco slipped out into the rainy parking lot, Jasmine caught sight of her reflection in the stainless steel instrument tray, the same face that had stared back at her in Grand Mercy's locker room, but somehow different now. The tension around her eyes had eased, even as the circles beneath them darkened from relentless 16-hour days. Maya bumped shoulders with her as they restocked the trauma kit. "Remember when we thought working in the ER was hard?" Her chuckle was warm with shared exhaustion. "Now we're out here playing battlefield medicine in a van during a thunderstorm." Jasmine's laugh caught in her throat as the radio crackled to life. Unit 3. We've got a probable stroke at the underpass on Peachtree and Pine. Elderly female. Homeless bystanders report left side weakness. Before the dispatcher finished speaking, they were moving, Maya slamming drawers shut while Jasmine grabbed the thrombolytics kit. The city ambulance wouldn't respond to that area. Not for an uninsured homeless woman, but Bennett Medical's vans did. The tires hissed through flooded streets as Javier, their driver-paramedic, navigated downtown's maze of underpasses. Through the rain-streaked windshield, Jasmine saw the small crowd gathered beneath the dripping concrete overpass. A frail black woman lay on a soaked mattress, her left arm bent at an unnatural angle. Mrs. Jenkins. Jasmine knelt in the filthy water, already assessing. The right-sided facial droop told the story before she checked the pupils. Maya, get the portable CT set up. Javier, I need a glucose check and full vitals. As they worked, Jasmine noticed the small details. The photo of a young man tucked in Mrs. Jenkins's pocket. The way her remaining good hand clutched at Jasmine's sleeve like a drowning woman grasping a lifeline. This was why she'd become a doctor. Not for the prestige or the paycheck, but for moments like this, when her hands could mean the difference between a grandmother seeing her grandson graduate or becoming another statistic. The CT confirmed it. Ischemic stroke still within the treatment window. As the clot-busting medication dripped into Mrs. Jenkins's IV line, Jasmine found herself humming an old hymn. Her mother used to sing during night shifts at the nursing home. Something about lifting burdens and walking together through storms. 3 days later, when Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her hand with both of hers in the Bennett Medical inpatient ward, Jasmine felt something inside, her chest unclench, that she hadn't realized was tight. This was medicine as it was meant to be. Imperfect, messy, but fundamentally human. The seasons changed. Jasmine's skills grew sharper even as her heart grew softer. She learned to suture wounds by flashlight during power outages, to diagnose pneumonia with just a stethoscope when their portable X-ray was down, to negotiate with gang leaders for safe passage to treat gunshot victims. The white coat stayed crisp, but the woman wearing it became someone far more complex than the rule-following resident she'd once been. One sweltering July afternoon, the call came that would test everything she'd learned. An apartment building collapse in the West End. Dozens trapped, including children. Bennett Medical mobilized every available provider. The scene was chaos when they arrived. Screaming parents, dust-choked air, the metallic scent of blood mixing with powdered concrete. Jasmine worked tirelessly alongside firefighters, her medical supplies dwindling as she triaged patients in the rubble's shadow. Then the shout came. Child trapped in the basement. Unresponsive. Without hesitation, Jasmine followed the firefighter into the unstable wreckage. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, lay pinned under a beam, her breathing shallow, pulse barely detectable. As Jasmine assessed her in the flickering emergency lights, the building groaned ominously above them. Doc, we gotta go, the firefighter urged. This whole section's about to... Give me 90 seconds. Jasmine's voice was calm as she splinted the compound fracture and started an IV. Line with hands that didn't shake. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she heard Langston's voice. Reckless, irresponsible, termination. But louder was her mother's voice from all those years ago. Baby girl, sometimes doing right means standing when everyone else walks away. They emerged just as the corridor collapsed behind them. The little girl's limp body cradled in Jasmine's arms. The waiting ambulance swallowed them up. And for 20 frantic minutes, it was just Jasmine and the child fighting, death together in the back of that roaring vehicle. When the girl's eyes finally fluttered open in the pediatric ICU hours later, Jasmine stepped outside and finally let herself tremble. The sunset painted the hospital walls in fiery hues as Elena Bennett found her there. You know, Elena said softly, handing her a coffee. Adrian was that little girl once. The system failed him at every turn until he built something better. She studied Jasmine's exhausted face. Now he's building it with you. The truth of those words settled over Jasmine like a mantle. This wasn't just a job or even a calling. It was a legacy, being passed from one set of healing hands to another. That night, as she finally collapsed into bed, Jasmine realized she hadn't thought about Grand Mercy in months. The anger and betrayal had been transformed into something far more powerful, a quiet determination to keep healing, keep fighting, keep remembering that every life was worth saving. Years later, when Jasmine stood at the dedication ceremony for the new Carter Bennett Community Health Center, her name on the plaque beside Adrian's, she would think back to that moment in the ER when she'd risked everything for a stranger, and she would know without a shadow of doubt that she'd make the same choice again. Because medicine wasn't about policies or profits. It was about the sacred moment when one human being reaches out to another in their darkest hour and says, "I see you. You matter. Let me help." And that, Jasmine had learned, was a truth no administrator could ever take away.